I want to do a quick review on the movie The Northman. Um, Been a while since it was in theaters, but I see it's making its way onto streaming at the moment. I did see it in the theater. Definitely, probably more enjoyable on a big screen than the small, but uh, it's a movie to properly appreciate it needs a little bit of expectation setting, I guess is a good way of saying it. So, in the last, 5 years or so, maybe a little longer, uh, the whole Viking thing has kind of taken off. It's uh, almost the undead zombie craze of the current bunch of years going by. And so, I've watched a lot of the series on the streaming services, the Vikings, Last Kingdom, at least another one, and very much enjoy them. Love those series. Very good. So the thing you need to walk into the Northman understanding is this movie is completely unlike those series. Okay, so what's happened is these series have created a uh, basically a lens where we're looking at the Vikings in a very particular way, and you kind of get into this. Wow, this is a really interesting world. You kind of get sucked in, so you kind of want to keep seeing each series looking very similar to the other ones. And so if you walk into this movie going, "Oh, I want to see the Vikings. I want to see the Last Kingdom. I want to see the Vikings acting and looking exactly like they do in these series." Yeah, it's gonna be a little bit jarring to you. So essentially, this movie is taken from uh, one of the ancient Norse. I believe the term is skald. The old the myths that are semi mythical, where some of the characters may actually be real people, or at least based closer to real people than because it's not purely mythological. It's not like the gods walking around on the planet doing things. It's not uh, purely supernatural creatures, etc., etc. Uh, it's actually some basis in fact, probably. This guy that this is based on is he's considered mythical, but he may be also semi-historical, or at least the story. If you just look at the outline of the story, there's nothing ridiculously fantastic about it in terms of being out there. But there's a warning on that one too. So uh, if you actually look at the old Norse legends, they do have a much grimmer feel to them. Very gritty. The whole idea. Okay, so like if you think about in terms of fate, uh, when you look at fate in something like The Last Kingdom or Vikings, it's just kind of like, oh well, that's fate. That's the way things are going to go. Tra la la, and then they're very happy go lucky about it. Or in this one, uh, fate has kind of you know a kind of a dark hue about it, rather than just something you shrug your shoulders at and just say, well, whatever will be will be. So if you walk in there understanding that this is going to be much more like the original Norse legends than the current sampling of how uh, the various media studios want to depict the Vikings for popular consumption. This is so if you get into the general tale, uh, there is a fair amount of action. Probably some of the most realistic uh, in terms of weaponry, costuming, fighting. Uh, they did their research really well. This is as historically accurate as you're going to possibly get without going back in time. So if you can get over the first hurdle of having it in your head that this isn't going to be like the other movie or the TV series I've been watching, you should be able to get into it pretty well because it's a good story. It's really well acted. Uh, Now, the other thing that was throwing some people off, and it didn't throw me off because I knew it, but what happened was that when we were done, I was talking to my wife, and she was not happy with it, and part of it was because it didn't behave like she thought Vikings should behave. And the other thing is there is a okay, because okay, if you read the original Norse stories, they're very similar to Greek stories about heroes, where the gods are intervening and doing things. And so this does happen in the story to some extent, but you as the viewer are allowed to choose how you want to view it. One of the things that is strongly suspected based on evidence uh, is that the Vikings probably did a lot of hallucinogens for the purpose of um, either getting them fired up for battle or to see visions and understand what they thought the gods were telling them. So there are some things where things just appear to go kind of weird. And so it depends on your mindset. If you're the type person, if you're like, I don't want to see supernatural, well, that is really easy to say. Well, yeah, these people are tripping when you're seeing this stuff. They, that was part of their world. That's how they tried to understand things that were beyond their view. And if you like the supernatural, you can just throw it in there and say, "Yep, it's supernatural." But I mean, it's if the cues are there to understand that you're basically dealing with hallucinogens, and obviously if they see something in a vision, they don't understand altered state of mind the way we look at it. They would have been, oh, I'm in communication with the god, so I have to take this seriously. I have to believe what's going on here. So with that part in mind, that should steal you through those scenes if that's an issue. The only actor I had a little problem with, and not huge, it wasn't big. For some reason, I don't know why, Nicole Kidman just didn't seem like she should have been there. I mean, her acting was okay. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just for some reason, I don't know. I guess maybe she was too pretty and clean compared to the rest of the characters and kind of jumped out. But maybe that was meant to be in terms of viewership, just understanding that she was kind of the oddball out in terms of the things that are happening. Now, what makes this story kind of interesting, the main character's name is Amleth, and it is this story is the inspiration for Shakespeare's Hamlet. Hamlet. Now, mind you, there's a couple different versions of the Amleth story, and none of them are exactly like Hamlet. So if you've seen, if you're fully familiar with Hamlet and you go, I don't want to see that story again, it's not the story of Hamlet, in Viking costume. It's a very much different story, but you can see the elements. Once towards the end, you'll start going, oh, okay, I can see where Shakespeare borrowed from this to turn this into Hamlet. Uh, but in general, I thought it was a really good movie. Uh, it's a decent epic. I would give it some rough comparisons to the 13th Warrior. If you're familiar with that movie, one you should see too. Definitely see. If you like anything, if you like Vikings, you will love the 13th Warrior. Highly underrated movie. But if I were to make a comparison to the two movies, uh, Amleth reminds me a lot of the Viking chief who's in charge of the group that's on their trek to deal with the issues. The very stoic and serious the leader. That's part of what that's one thing that's reminiscent. That's what he reminds me a little bit of. Um, but yeah, definitely worth a 1C, and I'm planning on watching it again just to see if I get more out of it than the first time. Uh, it's one of those things where there's a lot going on, and once you go through, understand everything that's going on, uh, watching it a second time, I'm sure there's a lot of things you might pick up. So if it's on your streaming service, highly recommend giving it a look. And if you don't have it on your streaming service, I'm sure there's some alternate means you can find it at. If you have seen The Northman, give me your comment below. Tell me what you thought of it. If you watch it because of this review, even more so, tell me what you thought. I mean, do you agree with how I'm portraying it? Uh, would you like to see more from this producer and director in this kind of thing? Uh, please smash the like button. If there's somebody out there you know might find this information useful, please share it with them. And I put out a bunch of these videos every week, so please subscribe to my channel. Thank you for spending time with me this evening. Hope to see you again in a future video.